Hi everyone, Julie here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I thought I would put together a video on portrait retouching because I get asked that quite often, and I thought what I would do is I will go through and I will edit this particular image of Summer in real time, and I will go through and show you the actions that I use to edit the image. So if you haven't used actions before, they're pretty easy. I've got these on my website. So I've just opened it in Photoshop and I'm just going to run through from top down, and I'm going to start with the portrait setup. So what that does is it gives me a layer that I can use to heal or use the patch tool or clone tool or whatever you want to fix anything. So I'm going to do that. So I've still got it's changed the name, given me a second layer, so I can come through with something like the spot healing brush, and I can get rid of any marks, anything that needs to be cleaned up. And I do like to go in quite close. Okay, then I next hit the skin retouch. Ignore this merge visible, don't worry about that, but it will give you a medium blur. So it says to go between 10 and 30, depends on the size of your image. I recommend going to just where the shadows are starting to blur between the different colors. So maybe I might stick to 11. Okay, the next one, it's then going to ask you for a high pass. It recommends between 1.5 to 3. Again, depending on the size of your image. I'm going to go to 1.5. You want to just have detail. Maybe, actually I might go to 2. So you still want detail in the eye and the skin texture, but not too much. Okay, so when it's done that, it comes up with a message saying to open the folder. It didn't actually put them in a folder. Changes with Photoshop, but basically, so the mask is there, so you just need to paint on the level of blur and detail to each layer. So I'm going to hit continue, and now it's in a folder. So open the folder, and I'm going to go into blur, and I'm going to pick up my brush and switch it to white, and then I'm going to paint it in. Now, as you can see, it's quite blurry, but that's okay. Just paint it in where it needs to go. So this is not frequency separation, it's similar sort of thing, but it is different. I just find that most people get really confused with frequency separation, and this is a nice easy way to get around it. And don't panic if she looks pretty freaky just at the moment. I'm just going to zoom out. I wouldn't do the dress. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop it right back. So if I zoom in again, at the moment that's on 11%. I'm just going to zoom it until it just starts to just soften off a little bit. Now I'm going to come in on this one, which is the detail layer, and I'm going to put that skin detail back in again so that it looks real. So if you just soften it, it still looks fake. You actually need to put in some texture on the skin. So sometimes you might find that that's a bit strong. So what I'm going to do is just soften it off a little bit more, and you can come in and you can play around with these until you are happy with how it looks. And of course you can come back in if you find that you need to delete some or remove some of what you had in, and do it that way. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do, one is eye color pop. Summer's actually got really dark colored eyes and I don't want to change them. If you had somebody with light blue eyes or grey eyes or something like that, you can change them, or if you're doing something creative, I don't want to. So I'm just going to come back up to the top here and I'm going to do eye highlights. So using a white brush, paint in the highlights and drop the opacity as required. So I'm going to zoom in again. I'm just going to paint in the highlights just in her eyes, just make it stand out a little bit more. And if you find it's too strong, you can always bring that back. The next one is teeth whitening. You can't really see the teeth in here, but it's, again, you just have to press on it and hit play. Dodge and burn, I could do with a bit of a dodge and burn in here, so I'm going to hit dodge and burn. And what it will do, again, it puts in two curves layers, one light, one dark. Paint with a white brush on the layer mask to put in areas that you need to do. Now this might come across as a bit dark, and what you can do is you can drop the opacity. So I'm going to put shadows in on my model. Okay, now what I'm going to do is two things. First thing, I'm going to click on the layer mask and drop the feather. I can come back in and drop the opacity. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the highlights. I'm going to come in and paint the highlights in where they need to be. As you can see, I'm being quite loose with my painting. I'm not being too fussy at all, but I am painting in the highlights. So again, click on the layer mask and drop the feather, and I can probably drop that down a little too much. So that's before and that's after, so it just brings it up a little bit. Now this is another one which is really cool, which is Cinematic 2. You don't have to use all of these when you are using the actions. They're just there. Sometimes you want a high pass detail, sometimes you want to blur the background, sometimes you want to desaturate your blacks, or even give a vintage tone. But I'm going to come through and I'm going to click Cinematic. Now what that will do is it will give you several different lookup tables, several different blur modes, and it gives a solid color on exclusion, which you can come in, and blue's probably not what I want for this particular image. I probably want more golden tones, so I'm going to swap that out for more of a golden tone for this image. I've already done a high pass black background, or high pass detail I should say. I don't need to blur the background because you can't really see it. The subtle S-curve I could add in, but it's probably way too strong on this particular image, so I can drop the opacity right down. The other one which I might apply for this is the vintage tones. Open the folder vintage tones and drop the opacity or change the color fill. So I have done that, and the color again is probably, I don't want the blue, I want more of a golden color. It's probably too much, and that's on 2%. Bring it right back so you only want a touch. Another one is desaturating the blacks, which gives it that beautiful vintage look. Again, it is way too strong, so I'm going to bring it back. The other thing that I probably could do, I could come in and give it a black and white contrast, which gives me a beautiful, beautiful black and white image of summer. So I'm going to leave it there. So that is using my portrait retouching actions, and how I will do a portrait pretty much from start to finish. There are a few other things that I could do, but keeping it really, really simple for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, save it for later, and share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye for now.